Hello, fellow knowledge seekers. In this video, we are going to cover mental models of virtue and vice, as we examine the models of the 7 deadly sins and their opposite, the 7 heavenly virtues. We will introduce the idea of integrative thinking, and we will see how it complements Aristotle's virtue theory. We will also explore the abstract nature of polarity and synthesis as it relates to virtues and vices. And of course, we will explore what the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues are and how we can benefit from this knowledge. Be sure to watch until the end to see how we can even apply the 80-20 principle towards virtue habit selection. Hopefully you're ready, because here we go. The 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues have their origins in early Christian thought, and may have been somewhat influenced by earlier Greek thinkers such as Aristotle, who had his own virtue theory. Although these lists were pieced together over the centuries, they have remained largely untouched into modern times. Here we will attempt to use colloquial terms when possible. With all this in mind, the vices that constitute the 7 deadly sins include lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, anger, envy, and pride. The 7 heavenly virtues that balance out these vices are chastity, moderation or temperance, helpful generosity, productiveness or diligence, patience, kindness or gratitude, and humility. We mentioned Aristotle earlier, and we need to cover his powerful contributions to virtue theory. Aristotle believed that virtue is the mean between extremes. He is credited with viewing virtue as the mean between 2 extremes of vices, all of which pertain to a certain sphere of action, a method known as the golden mean. In this manner, he suggested that where we find a vice of excess, there will be a corresponding vice of deficiency, the place of moderation between the 2 extremes being the mean of virtue. As an example from one of his virtues, a vice of deficiency could be cowardliness, and at the other extreme, we would have the excess vice of rashness, with the golden mean between the 2 vices being the virtue of courage. Not too timid, not too reckless, a virtuous middle ground. When we think about the structure of Aristotle's mental model of the golden mean, it brings us close to a modern creation known as integrative thinking. Integrative thinking is a technique that takes the tensions between 2 opposite models and generates a new, better model resulting from the tension. A model which may contain aspects of the original models, yet is ultimately superior. When we think of integrative thinking applied to virtues and vices, the tension between the 2 extremes of a sinful vice results in a synthesis that, when inverted towards the positive, or averaged to the mean as Aristotle would have it, yields a virtue. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kabbalion. Some things, like vices, can be looked at in terms of polarity, where one extreme is a vice of excess, and the other extreme is a vice of lack. Yet as far as degree is concerned, like and unlike are on the same continuum. The 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues fit this model of a continuum, with extremes of vice and a middle ground of virtue. Let's take a deeper look at these models in this table so we can better see their relationships to one another. Here we have the balanced virtuous middle right where it belongs, and on the left we can see the vices which could be considered excessively permissive, and the vices on the far right, which could be considered excessively rigid. Lust and prudishness, for instance, could be considered excessive influence of the sexual, with permissiveness being indulging in lust, and rigidness towards sexual desire resulting in prudishness, while the mean, or the middle ground of restrained influence of the sexual, results in the virtue of chastity. Gluttony and deficiency are extreme desires towards food, with the mean virtue being moderation of the appetite. Greed and wastefulness both involve unconscionable management of inflows and outflows, yet the middle ground is the virtue of helpful generosity. Sloth and workaholism involve unreasonable attitudes towards effort, with the mean virtue being productive diligence. Anger is opposite to servility on this vice spectrum of extreme perceptions of the offenses of others, while the middle ground results in the virtue of patience and forbearance. Envy is on one extreme, while pusillanimity is on the other in terms of lacking, whether that be lacking possessions enjoyed by others, all the way up to lack of self-determination. The mean between these two vices is the incredibly important virtue, gratitude, or a kind attitude towards life for the sufficiency we possess. Finally, pride is a vice at one extreme, with self-loathing at the other end, both of which involve excesses on the continuum of self-love, whereas the middle ground of virtue is a state of humility. So those were the models of the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues composed according to the format of Aristotle's golden mean. But how can we apply it in our lives? If we want to overcome a vice, we should study what it is and determine its essence and its true boundaries on a continuum. Then we can seek the virtuous middle ground by polarizing our habits towards the mean of virtue and away from each deficiency or excess on the extremities. We can take time to discern what may be virtuous with the help of the golden mean, by seeking the virtuous middle and imagining ourselves performing and acting out virtuous behavior, and by studying this video we can easily call to mind the virtues and vices we just examined as a sort of map of what kind of behaviors we would benefit from seeking out or avoiding during the course of our activities. We can even apply other mental models on top of these models to leverage results a bit further. Take the 80-20 Pareto principle, for example. When this list of virtues gets examined by asking what vital few virtue or virtues might provide 80% of the overall benefits, gratitude comes right to the top. If we focus on cultivating gratitude, we can mitigate numerous vices while improving our attitude on multiple dimensions and bringing forces to play that have the potential to truly reshape our lives for the better, and it all starts with gratitude. If there is anything we should review, it is that these mental models of virtue and vice, the 7 deadly sins and the 7 heavenly virtues, have been presented in this video in the structure of Aristotle's mental model of the golden mean, which forms the core of his virtue theory. This model of the golden mean takes the form of categorizing flaws in the format of excess, deficiency, and the mean between the two. We can apply this model when we encounter new perceived vices that are not part of the 7 deadly sins and yield helpful results with the technique. Finally, Aristotle believed virtue was learned through experience. The ideas can be taught, but it is the student's actions that will determine if they develop the virtue. So remember, it is great to watch videos on virtue, but even better to act them out. If you found value in this explainer video, please share it with someone you think could benefit. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. There are plenty of videos yet to be made, and your support makes them possible. Thanks for watching.